Actually, it strikes me that most of you probably know each other.
Yeah.
Do we? I don't think the lights are on.
Well, they're not on.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think this is, yes, that's what
Yeah.
Yes. Are we live?
Over there.
Good.
I'm recording you.
We are now live on the live stream, so welcome everybody, good to see you here. I'm Roger Hirst, I'm your Police Fire and Crime Commissioner.
Got to remember to do that. Paul Hogben, I'm the District Commander for Castle Point and Rochford.
Hi, yeah, Justin Benson-Ryal, the Group Commander for the South East, which includes Castle Point from Essex Fire Rescue Service.
Thank you. And hiding down on the lower levels, we have my Deputy Jane Gardner and my colleagues Leah Edwards and Carol Webb. Rarely ever use the surname. Sorry, Carol. So we're here this evening basically to talk about what matters to you, hear what issues you have to raise in your borough, and see if we can answer them this evening, or if we can't, take them away and get an answer some other way. And we will publish a note of the meeting on the PFCC website, and with that we will attempt to publish the answers to any of the questions we haven't managed to address this evening. So we do that fairly rigorously and try and make sure that we can actually solve the issues that you want. Sometimes there are personal issues that come up which need to be addressed. If there's something you want to raise more privately, if it is personal, wait till the end of the meeting and we'll hang around afterwards, won't we? We can pick up on anything which is of that nature. But you know, whether that's your own or whether you're representing a resident or colleague or friend or whatever. Where we normally play it is I normally do about 5 minutes just on the big picture of where I think we are across the county, but then we spend the rest of the hour, and we normally go over the hour, so yeah, let's see where we get to. Really trying to answer your questions and picking up on your points. But obviously, if either of my colleagues here wish to say anything at the start as well, they're more than welcome to. I just haven't invited them to do that yet, and I'm doing so now. So that's unadvertised. There you go. Just sort of a bit of scene setting from me then. So, you know, I'm pleased about some of the things that we've achieved, and probably the biggest thing that I'm pleased about is that we have actually delivered on the expansion programme for Essex Police that we set in train in 2018, so you know, nearly 6 years ago now. Just as, well, actually, the now Chief Constable was Deputy Chief Constable when we started it, and he's seeing it through as Chief Constable. That's 905 extra cops beyond where we were before. That takes us to a sustained level of 3,755. Actually, I think as we speak, we're just over 3,800, but that's because of the way recruitment works. People come in batches and leave in a trickle. It's sort of quarterly or whatever it may be. So we're not, 3,800 is not where we're trying to be. We're trying to be at 3,750. That is, you know, a good number. It's the biggest number of officers that Essex Police has ever had in its 184-year history. And I think as well, we've done quite a bit of investment in technology, so hopefully these things are allowing the officers to be out and about more with you on patrol. I'm told it's about 10% more productive time for an officer because of the remote working that we're allowed to do. So if you add that on, that's another 300 or 400 cops. So it really is quite a substantial equivalent to, it isn't actually, quite a substantial addition to where we are, and would be a bigger expansion of the force than we've seen expansion of the population in that time. So it was what we were told, it was the top side of what we were told we needed to have. I remember very well that Andy Prophet, who's now Deputy Chief Constable, when we set about the expansion programme and I promised 300 more cops, he said we really need 900. Well, here we are, we've got 900. So it is, and the good news is, it does appear to be a good number. I'm absolutely sure that all the cops will always tell you that they could do with more. My dad was a cop, and he didn't actually see me get this job. He saw me selected as the candidate, but I think he was hoping I would, and did say to me, just always bear in mind, Roger, no senior police officer will ever tell you there are enough police, because they always want more resource, they're always keen to do more, they're always keen to keep people safer. But what it is it's enough to start getting crime down. So crime is now down across the county by about 6% over the last year. And some of the key crimes that we focused on early in our shift to prevention, which is what this has all been about, have come down a lot more. So antisocial behaviours down by about 38% over the last year and about 70% over the last 5 years. That's a big reduction in the lower levels of crime. It's a lot of safer parks, safer residential estates and safer town centres, which is good to see, and I think we've had some very positive feedback from residents about how that's going. But at the other end of the scale, we've also managed to achieve over a 40% reduction in homicide. And that, of course, is the most serious of crimes. Really glad to see that's happened. At the end where we've been trying really hard to get involved around drug-driven violence, so we've set up the Violence and Vulnerability Unit, we have much more stop and search on the streets, we work much more closely with the National Crime Agency, and I'm really pleased to say that the level of knife homicide in the county, drug-driven knife homicide, is down by 70%. So that's a very different trend from that you will have read about in the newspapers. You know, London isn't achieving this. Essex Police has been phenomenally innovative over the last 5 years. Really good hotspot policing, serious violence hotspots, antisocial behaviour hotspots, town centre patrols, making sure the town centres are kept safer, but also working around domestic abuse, some innovative practice there, problem-solving teams, working with perpetrators to help them understand the consequences of their actions and change their ways. Baffles me. I'm really lucky. I've never been anywhere near domestic violence, and I absolutely condemn male violence against women at all times, and I'm happy to stand up and say that. But it kind of baffles me that someone should not understand the impact they're having by being abusive to their partner. But apparently they don't. And apparently if you put them through a programme that explains it properly, they change. So, excitingly, we actually have domestic abuse down by about 15% in the county in the last year. So lots of really exciting stuff happening on the back of the investment, but it is by no means over. We have a lot of training to do, a lot of new cops. I think, was it 2,000 of recruitment in the last 5 years to get to where we are today? Yeah. So it's a lot of new people, and I think it's probably 600 still actually in the training schools, aren't they, of the total?
It's got to be close to that.
Yeah. So a lot of more people actually yet to get out onto the streets to make a difference. And of course there are some crime types where we have a lot more to do. Vehicle theft at the moment is absolutely rampant. We've seen it rise a lot, particularly in the west and the south of the county. You would have experienced it here. And that seems to be, again, at the two extremes. So it's Range Rovers and Bentleys at one end with their proximity opening, where you can walk up to it with just your key in your pocket and it opens. Locked for you and me, not locked for a criminal. Too easy to get into. And at the other end of the scale, it's Ford Fiestas, where apparently the engines are actually very much prized at the moment, because more recent Ford models, engines aren't lasting as long, so you can lift and drop and you end up with a new car. So I'm told. I've never tried it myself. But really serious stuff. And of course, still, we have an awful lot to do around, say, rape and serious sexual assault. We haven't managed to work out how to prevent that yet. We are, I think, more supportive of victims than we have been, but we have a lot more to do on that. So I really am determined to see this programme through. It was a 10-year programme when we started 6 years ago. There's another few years to go until we actually manage to deliver the reductions in crime that the investment should bring. It's not instantaneous. You can arrest criminals and take them off the streets, but actually that's kind of like that whack-a-mole game. Someone else steps in to do it. You actually have to get into that prevention space and make places safer, protect vulnerable people, and manage offenders so they don't offend again. On the fire and rescue side as well, we have made, it's been a much smaller level of investment there, but we have invested quite heavily in fire protection activity and improved the way that the fire and rescue service can enforce. They have more resources now to actually enforce against businesses and residential property operators who do not have safe premises. I think we're okay here in Castle Point, aren't we? But up in Harlow, we're busy working with the council to decant a tower block full of people where the owner was the property owner, responsible person, was not prepared to put in place the remediation that was needed. I think the costs were in the millions, so the building's going to have to come down, and that is exactly the sort of thing that the Fire and Rescue Service needs to be doing to keep people safe. So yeah, the sort of work that they've been doing, again, a shift to prevention, a focus on protecting vulnerable people, and the good news is in the last year I think the number of fires was down by about 17%, the number of call-outs overall down by a bit less than that, but of course we are doing a lot more now to work with the health service. So there is a lot of work to rescue people that collapse behind closed doors who may have collapsed for a health reason rather than for a fire. And that sort of work more closely liaising with other emergency services and indeed with the police. Yeah. So fire and rescue are doing more, but the actual core issue of people killed or seriously injured through fire or indeed through traffic collisions, a lot of prevention work being done there very successfully. That kind of is all I wanted to say, I think, from the big picture. I'm sure you've got a lot more questions around that and in probably much more detail about what's happening here in Castle Point. So, anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm just quite happy to just go with the questions. And
Yeah, just take questions.
Yeah, good. In which case, please, over to you. Who's first? Please.
Councillor Rob Lewis. Good evening, Mr. Hirst, and welcome to Castle Point.
Call me Roger, please.
Roger, there you go. Good evening, Roger. The question is on behalf of my colleague, Councillor Alan Edwards, and he asks, how can we get the police to act on known areas where drug dealing takes place when reports to the police seem to have no effect? Thank you.
So, I mean, my answer to that, and I'll hand over to your district commander any minute because he'll know a lot more detail about it here, is it's really important to report. When you say no effect, the frustration normally is that you report it and you don't get an attendance because the police know that by the time they turn up, the deal have been done, it's gone. Actually, what we need is regular, constant reporting, because that way the police actually get the chance to plan their intervention and be there at the right time to make a difference, whether that's preventing it happening or actually arresting the people who are doing it. But do you want to, have I stolen your thunder?
no, I can answer that, that's fine. So, yeah, I think one of the frustrations that people get is that time it takes for them to physically see the action that happens. So, Castle Point and Rochford, we are lucky in that we have, as well as we've got our operation Raptor that operate across the county, tackling county lines, coming into the county and dismantling organised crime groups from the top down. Castle Point and Rochford are the only district at the moment in the whole county that have a dedicated team within our community policing team who are dedicated to tackling drug supply within the district. And they're incredibly successful. So our Operation Falcon team, as they're known, do an incredible amount of work, and they're hugely successful for such a small team. Just in the last couple of years, they've recovered hundreds of thousands of pounds in drugs, cash, criminal property. They've had people sentenced to decades in prison as a result of their work, and they're doing that every day. I think some of the frustration is the amount of time it takes for them to get to that stage, because we can go out and they could go out in plain clothes and a plain car and they could catch a few drug dealers probably a day if they tried. That doesn't scratch the surface in reality, because what we need to do is cut it off at the top, and that's where their focus is predominantly. So they are doing so much work in the background based on the intelligence. So the reports people feed into us, every single one gets reviewed by the team, and that feeds into a bigger picture and helps develop intelligence. And they're using really sophisticated investigative techniques to develop things. So by the time we get to actually doing the visible activity, they might execute 5-10 warrants on the same morning, take out the very top players in that OCG, and we're already charge ready, so we don't have to bail them and let them risk them disappearing or committing more offences while they're on bail, we already know that as soon as we put them in custody, we're getting a charge home and they're getting remanded and they're going to prison and they're not going to be out for a good few years. They're very good at that, but as I say, it takes time. And of course, when you report something for intel, as an intelligence report, it all gets sanitised. So when it comes down to us, we don't know who the source is. So we can't go back to you and go, thank you very much for that bit of information, we're doing loads of work on it, or that was really key to us doing this bit of activity. They'll never hear back. And it has to be that way, obviously, to make people safe and make them feel that they're safe and they're not going to be compromised. So it's a difficult balance. All I would say is we really advertise all the work we do around drugs through our social media and through our the Essex Police media team. And if you follow those,
You have to go.
In any minute, I'll have the telephone.
Yes. So if you follow us on the social media and on the Essex Police website, that's how you see the results of that intel that gets submitted. So we're never going to be able to act on one single piece of information, but it all adds up, and we collate it all and act when there's enough for us to do a significant piece of work on it. So please just encourage reporting and following our social media and stuff.
And one of the ones I remember from last August, I think it was 6 people arrested and 28 years, they were successfully convicted, 28 years between them, which is...
Yeah, and that was from Canby, so yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Councillor Sharon Easy, St Mary's Ward. Welcome, everybody. So I've got a list of questions and I'll try to place them as relevant. So I'm just interested in what you were just saying about reporting crimes. Now, I've spoken to you about this before, Paul, and I know other people have as well. And I've written down here, when contacting the police, what constitutes an emergency?
It's
Yes.
Oh, that's why I didn't go green last time. So it's not necessarily a set of hard and fast rules of this is an emergency, this isn't an emergency. Predominantly, if there is an ongoing risk to people or property, then it's an emergency for the most part. That's probably the closest I'll give to you to a definition.
Okay, so that doesn't really help. Okay.
Well, maybe I can try that, because I sat in the control room asking the same question. And yeah, the operatives in the control room are well trained to try and work out whether it is an emergency or not. And I remember very well remember one where, sad to say, the woman I sit next to got it wrong. So someone called in and said that he'd been mugged and his kid had been stolen, and he'd taken a number of the people who'd done it, and it was dispatched. There was a response dispatched there and then, and I listened to the conversation develop. And as the conversation developed, it was quite clear that actually it was his mate who'd stolen his sports bag. That wasn't an emergency. But by that stage, a police car had arrived and taken a statement. There's an awful lot of wasted effort around people saying things are emergencies when they're not. And there's an awful lot of training involved in trying to differentiate what is really a threat to property and life and what isn't.
As a responsible citizen, I would question whether or not, okay, should I be ringing 999? Is it an emergency? And then I think, well, I don't think it's an emergency, but I want to report this. And then you've got Digital 101, and you cannot get through. So you ring 101, you go through jump through all the hoops, option this, option that, is it this, is it that? Then quite often it will refer you back to your local council, which is not very good when it's happening in front of you. So I tried to call for assistance. We've got a problem in Castle Point, I'm sure it's everywhere, quad bikes. And they are coming across from Basildon, across the fields, and they are going through private property, they're cutting through fences, they are stealing goods from local properties, breaking into yards and things like that, and they are dismantling machinery and making off with it. Now, these quad bikes, they are tearing around our estate with no thought for public safety. And I tried to report this because they nearly ran me over on my way down to Benfleet High Road a couple of weeks ago. And just couldn't get through to him. But I didn't think it was an emergency.
Was a crime in progress? I would have thought that was probably a 999 call, didn't you?
Yeah, so if, as you're describing, they're actively stealing things and putting people at risk, and absolutely that would be a 999. Just to cover off the 101, and believe me, I get the frustrations, and you know, in every public meeting I go to, I think someone will talk about 101 and the length of time it takes to get through. What I would say is we've seen an awful lot of investment and development within our contact management command in recent sort of months. You know, even the last 6 months, we've seen huge improvements, and we're now starting to see the benefits of that investment. So the 101 call times have come down significantly in recent months, and we're doing a lot of work to try and educate people about when to call, when not to call, when to report online, which will hopefully free up those time, you know, more of that time. And so when you have got that situation where you're like, I don't think it's an emergency, but I do want to speak to someone, hopefully you can get those calls answered quicker, and they are being answered quicker.
I think you want to come in on this, do you?
Yeah, so it's Mike Easton, so I'm councillor for St Peterborough. I just wanted to back Sharon up, so around Baton Way and down the area, which has got a lot of green belt and unmade areas. They've had the same issue back into late 2023 with quad bikes. In fact, they went down there and they blocked off both sides of the road down there, and then they just took out this woman's full of trees out the front she planted that were worth lots of money, just took them out in broad daylight and just put them around and just drove off. And I think we know, although maybe I'm putting them into a bracket, but we know the people who are doing that. And I just get a feeling that, well, I'm just going to say, I get a feeling that the police are too scared to go and tackle a certain group of people because of the challenge of doing that. I'm not saying you're scared of them, I'm just saying it's a challenge because of what.
All the paperwork.
And what could come off the back of that. You know, if you get a certain site somewhere, it would take you 10 or 12 years to get, once they're on the green bill. But to me, that's the group that I think needs to be targeted over this stuff. I don't know how you do that. I know it's very difficult.
Evidence.
And you can't be everywhere all the time. But they've got video. They had video evidence.
But that's the way to target it.
And still nothing happened.
Right.
Can I come back in there as well?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So, recent event, our wood chipper was stolen, and it was seen being dragged down the A130 by 2 quad bikes and was followed by the police helicopter. When they spotted it, they dropped it in the middle of the A130. Police helicopter allegedly saw where they went into and did nothing about it. Just recovered the wood chipper.
Do you know anything about that?
No, I was going to say it's very difficult for me to comment because I don't know the specific incident, so I can't really say what did or didn't happen. If you've got an incident or a crime number, if you send it to me outside of here, I'll certainly look into it and find out what did or didn't happen. I find it difficult to believe that if the helicopter managed to place them in an address, that wouldn't be followed up. And you know, just to go back to the point you made, there is no one that we are scared of, no one that we will not pursue if they're committing crime. And so some situations might require a bit more of a considered response in terms of risk assessment. Doesn't change anything, we'll make those things happen. So yeah, if you've got some reference number or something for me to look at, to chase it up, then please send it on to me and I'll have a look.
So I wasn't meaning to be rude, I was speaking to somebody else who's in the electrical industry, goes out and does that sort of stuff, and he said he went onto one of the sites and was basically told, leave now, don't come back, and he rang his head officer and said, no, don't go back in there, it's too dangerous. So I think that's probably some of the challenges. It must be dangerous to go to some of these places. Sorry.
But maybe I can just come back on that and say it can be dangerous to go into those places, and I can thoroughly understand why someone working for a business or a utility would be well advised not to go back, but that's not how the police operate. These guys and women are frankly phenomenally brave. They are trained from the day they join to run towards danger rather than away from it. And I've certainly had the opportunity to observe operations where some very dangerous places have been addressed and very dangerous people have been dealt with. I don't think there's no no-go area in Essex.
I think the quad bikes is an issue that needs to
That's a different matter, and it sounds as though there's something we could do there. So in Thurrock, what the local council there did just say was buy a couple of quad bikes for the police, and the police actually had the opportunity to pursue these people on vehicles that could catch them, and that made quite a difference. Maybe we can look at some sort of planned intervention in a similar sort of way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was recently speaking to the Thurrock District Commander actually about the quad bikes, and he was saying that, you know, even now that the success they have with them is phenomenal. And I'm quite sure my CPT officers would bite your hand off at the offer of quad bikes.
You all would.
I think, to be fair, we did co-fund it. It wasn't entirely down to the local council, but you know, it is the sort of thing where we can actually work together.
Right, because that's the added problem, isn't it? Is even if you chase these people,
I think your mic.
sorry, it's even if you chase these people when they're on, when they're on mopeds or whatever, when they go down certain areas, you just can't follow them in the police car because you're getting blocked.
Yeah.
And they know where they're going. That's why.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it on telly, so.
Sometimes they know where they're going. Sometimes they don't care where they're going.
No.
They just go. But there's a level of risk aversion which I don't think the police should be sharing.
Roger.
Please.
Councillor Barry Palmer. Am I wrong? Did you have a unit on bikes? I don't mean push bikes.
Oh, yeah,
Scrambler bikes that you could really. I know we had one in Newham where I originally come from.
No, we haven't got any.
we have
scramble
road bikes. Don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we?
Yeah, I know the road
Yeah,
bike.
no, we don't have any scramblers in Essex.
Because that's what they used in Newham to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because there ain't nowhere you can go without one of them being out full of you.
I'm dead keen on bringing back a mounted unit, but the
Me
Chief
too.
Constable says that's very expensive.
My daughter's with the mounted police. She's just got her 25-year long service award.
Oh, well done her.
In
Congratulations.
Lewisham police station. She's at the moment.
Excellent.
She's retiring next year though.
Thank you. Going back to the same person again, was it somebody else? You
Yeah.
wanted to, I'll go to someone new first.
Yes,
That's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Good evening, Roger. My name is Ivor Earl. I'm a resident of Castle Point. I have a couple of questions here. Unfortunately, my friend who is a resident of Castle Point is in France and won't be back till tomorrow morning. And he sent me two questions which he would like to put to you on the fire and rescue service. Now, the two questions take up the whole A4 sheet. Is it prudent for me to give that to you instead of me reading it out to you? And if I just pass it to you, you can analyse it.
And we'll come back formally and properly, but do you want, is there a headline that we can discuss here? Or is it?
Both questions are on fire and rescue on Canvey Island.
So the first question is, why Canvey Fire Station is not able to respond to visitors on Canvey? And the second question is there a problem with recruiting retained firefighters? Now, I think the first part of the answer to that is that the Canvey Fire Station is able to respond to incidents on Canvey. I actually saw one myself last Saturday when I was out on Canvey. So I know it does happen. But the way deployment works is that it is dynamic deployment. So we know, the control room knows exactly who's on and who's off, and there will be cover from other fire stations to make sure that the entire county is properly covered. And obviously with retained firefighters, they aren't available all the time. Sometimes they're away for work purposes or whatever, so we have to make sure the cover's there. So you may well see us. But actually, Justin, you know it's better than I do. There you go.
Okay, and apologies, after this question I need to go. We've got a couple of incidents that have drawn on our resources, so
Oh, right, okay.
yeah, I do apologise, but I asked control if someone could cover for me. So, well, no, you've got to go. So
Well, you've got your two questions now,
Yeah,
so
so
go
good
for it.
questions.
And we'll be...
So, Canvey. So, in terms of Canvey is what we call a strategic station. So, we've always got cover there, okay? But what you may find is Canvey's availability with the on-call station itself is sitting at 75%, which is really positive for an on-call station. So what we do on that 25% or whatever time it is that they're not available because the crews are in their primary employment, we will send an alternative machine down or an appliance down there. So that's why you may see another appliance down there with perhaps Rayleigh Weir's name on the side or Southend. But that will only be because the crews at Canvey are not available at that moment. So that hopefully is the answer for that. I think in terms of recruitment, Canvey's been a real success story over the last 2 years. So when I took over that area, one of my main focuses was around recruitment, and we've seen higher recruitment rates in the last 2 years than we probably have seen over the last 2 decades. Of course we would like to recruit more, of course we can, but nationally there's a challenge with on-call recruitment. It's not just a problem in Essex. In fact, with Essex, we're one of the highest performing services in the country regarding recruitment. So we're really good in that space. Of course we want more, but we're limited to the people in the area that need to respond within 5 minutes to be able to respond in the 6 minutes that we allow them to. So I think it's a positive story, if I'm being honest. Could we do more? Absolutely, we'd love to. I think going back to the original question about the appliance, Canvey is crewed 100% of the time because it's under that strategic station status, but sometimes we will backfill it with another appliance when the whole time, when the on-call crew, are not available.
I think the point is, on my friend's question,
Could you turn your mic off, sir?
There's 2 incidents there where there was a fire in May Avenue and the appliance came from Shoeburyness. And by the time it got there, the house had burnt to the ground. Then the second one, there was another fire within half a mile of the fire station, and that appliance came from Ingatestone.
So for the Shoebury appliance, we actually looked into that because there was a slight delay in responding. Shoebury was standing by at what we standing by, so they were covering the station while the crews at Canvey were unable to provide cover. So Shoebury did attend their job absolutely, but they responded from Canvey Fire Station. So and the second part to your question.
There was another one. There was another one half a mile from the fire station, and that appliance, the incident number is on there. The appliance come from Ingatestone.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually recall both those incidents, and once again, Ingatestone were the appliance that was standing by at Canvey for, was it an evening time?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the call may have been early in the morning, but once again, it's Ingatestone that was standing by at Canvey. As I said, I think the importance here is Canvey is always got available crews 100% of the time because of the risks we've got on Canvey, particularly the access on and off at certain times of the day as well. Is that okay? Does that answer your questions?
Disappointing that the Shoebury-Ness appliance, the response that they generated was you said it was a bit delayed.
Yeah, so what we had for there, because that was a house fire. It was in the bungalow, I think, if I stand correct.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So what they'd done, they'd responded in the time, okay, but on the investigation, because they were unable to locate the property and the address, that was the slight delay to them getting to the incident. But also, what happened here is that when we arrived, we have to manually book in what we call booking attendance to say that we're there. Because they were faced with such a ferocious fire, they immediately went into firefighting, and therefore the information through to control to say that their attendance was also delayed, but the appliance was there sometime sooner than that.
It sounds as though it was a nasty fire there.
It was very ferocious fire.
Yeah. Is that?
That's
I mean, we'll take the. I'll take this piece of paper away, and we'll also come back because we've got the address of your friend and colleague.
Yeah, his name and
so we
address
will
is
come
on there.
back with a written response to him.
Lovely.
As well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And Justin, Thank you for answering
Sure.
those. I hope it's not as serious as it could be.
No, they're just two heavy goods vehicles, one on the A13, one on the M11. So,
Right, okay.
unfortunately, one contains a load of lithium-ion batteries. So,
Off you go.
I'll see your colleagues there.